You know, niggas gotta get their priorities together. Got their mind on the wrong things, spending their money in the wrong way.
Trapaholics, real trap shit.
Say you need that car with the rims and a trunk, just like Jim. It's more than life. Yeah.
I'm telling you. Talk to him.
Say you need that LV bag with the belt and the hat.
That's all you got though.
It's more than life. Yeah.
Talk to him. Real.
Say you wanna turn up at the club, like some bottles, impress them girls. It's more than life.
Fucking everybody.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Saints and Appetizers podcast. And who dat? And welcome back. I know we got some main course for you, and man, it seems like it's been forever since there's been a Saints based podcast here in a while. It's been about 2 months or so, and we've only had just some mixed martial arts, UFC, some appetizers just kind of mixed in there. So man, it feels back to get back to basics, our first love here, and very fitting for the first podcast back to have for a while. The New Orleans Saints, all the Fleur-de-lis and all the good luck and the bad luck. Of course, it's Friday the 13th of March. So yeah, that's very fitting. And unless I listen to all these sportscasters and sports debate shows in the morning, I probably wouldn't have even known that it was Friday the 13th. It seems like that's something that was such a big deal when we were children, but not quite as big of a deal now that we're an adult, unless something super unlucky or terrible happens to us on that day. But anyway, so that's enough of the Friday the 13th talk, the date talk. There's a lot to get into with the Saints here, not just the whole free agent frenzy, but feels like we're kind of turning the page here on all these veterans because they didn't go out of their way to restructure these deals or give them add a year to their deal and add and re-sign them and add a couple void years. They didn't do that with Demario Davis or Cam Jordan or Taysom Hill, and they kind of did a little bit of different types of restructuring with Alvin Kamara. We'll get into that for a second, but Cam Jordan was like the first big name of like, hey, it's not expected for him to re-sign, so I'm thinking, man, you hear these players, and long time like greats and future Saints Hall of Famers, gold jacket wearers for them. You hear that they talk about how they love the Saints and it's like the only team they ever want to play on, and they want to retire New Orleans Saints. You hear that from Demario Davis, Cam Jordan, Taysom Hill, Alvin Kamara. You hear that from them, and that's what seems so. That was why I was so confused with how it's just like, wow, you hear that from them all the time, and man, they've seemed to have had no problem these last couple of years playing on like these bad teams, and like just as you start seeing like the light at the end of the tunnel, and maybe the Saints could possibly be good this year, you got Cam Jordan and Demario Davis saying basically like, they're not going to play for free. And I guess the Saints couldn't meet necessarily what their desired contracts or expected contracts for these, 36, 37-year-old players that, they had good years last year, respectable years last year, but I mean, there's definitely no guarantee, and with older players like that they could do it again. So that's kind of a little bit upsetting there. So Cam Jordan, I don't think he's signed with any other team, but because when like I think it may have been the day before free agency officially started around 3 o'clock, or if it was the day that free agency officially started around 3 p.m. is when it like there's no more restructuring or adding a year through their deal with Cam Jordan or Demario Davis or Taysom Hill. So they've been officially free agents then, and there's a lot of people that are saying like, oh, Cam Jordan doesn't look like he's getting a lot of attention out there on the open market. I guess there's been some comments from some Chiefs players, and that's about the only buzz that I've really heard was maybe with the Chiefs. And hey, I would like that for Cam Jordan just for being able to go to maybe a title contender, but I don't know if that's really the great best. That would be the best choice for being going to a title contender, just because Patrick Mahomes is coming off the ACL or yeah, it's either ACL or or Achilles. I think I think it was a knee injury. Finally, actually had a real knee injury, so it was ACL. So you don't really even know if that's who he chooses. Like that's really a Super Bowl contender. But now that it's kind of calmed down a little bit in the free agency market and the fact that he hasn't signed yet, kind of interesting. You hear a lot of hoot-ats and fans thinking like, oh yeah, the Saints should re-sign him. But I wouldn't like that. I would feel like that's like as if you're paying him twice. And I feel like Cam Jordan, he'd probably want like at least a $10 million deal because Demario Davis, who actually signed with the Jets, I was just talking about how these players they talk about how they only want to be a Saint, they want to retire for the Saints, but obviously that's money. That's money. That's all that is with Demario Davis there with the Jets because the Jets are I mean, they're the Jets. I guess he has some relationships because that's like where he originally like started his career and played half of his career then, and the whole I guess the Saints and Aaron Glenn connection. But other than that, that's money. So for 2 years, so 11 per. So I'm imagining that's something. That's around what Cam Jordan probably was wanting, around 10, 11 million. But because they didn't do any kind of restructures, the Saints are hit with a full 18 million in dead cap from Cam Jordan. So to turn around and pay him another 10, 12 million, and then you're basically paying Cam Jordan 30 million a year. Like, I'm sorry, Cam Jordan isn't a 30 million a year defensive player. So yeah, it's sad, it's disappointing, and but it's kind of like ripping the band-aid off, and that's what we got here with Kellen Moore. And Kellen Moore is definitely turning the page or just getting a whole nother leather bound book because it looks like there's going to be a new generation here, new decade, hopefully, with Tyler Shuck and any of the new players they draft here of the New Orleans Saints and the Kellen Moore Saints. So that's enough of Cam Jordan and some of those veteran players that don't. It doesn't look like they're going to be back, and if they are back, the only way I'll really be happy about it is if it's on like veteran minimum because I don't feel good about paying guys twice and paying guys that didn't want to be here originally would rather search the market and see if they could actually go get them some money or play for a championship team. It's just all mouth talk. That's all it is. All right, so that's enough about Cam Jordan. We had besides the whole, we're not restructuring these guys or we're not adding a year to the contract. We had an Alvin Kamara restructure, and his restructure, I'm guessing it was a little different than Chase Young. He restructured. Justin Reed, he restructured. Uh, jo- Juwan Johnson, he restructured. But I guess his restructure was was different in regards to I guess they talked about how it's not a restructure that you usually see unless it's for a player that's either going to get cut or get retired or going to retire or traded, cut, retired, traded, any of those. Because if he's on the team, he'll get his money like they give him up front for the restructure to help with the cap hit. Like if he's on the team with the Saints, he'll get the money. But if he doesn't, if he gets traded or cut or retires, then the Saints don't have to eat all of the cap hit, all the dead money that they originally would get. So that leaves it kind of interesting on I guess following how this plays out with what Alvin Kamara's decision is. I feel like this is almost like a 50-50 type of decision. Like, does Kellen Moore still want Alvin Kamara, and does Alvin Kamara still want to play football? And we've heard from straight from Alvin Kamara's mouth, I just said this kind of about Cam Jordan and Demario Davis, how he said the Saints are the only team he wants to play for. That's the team he wants to retire on. But you hear that, and next thing you know, heck, they're playing for the Patriots or they're playing for the Falcons or something ridiculous like that. But so that's something to kind of keep an eye on. So that was all the kind of the Saints news, kind of like leading up to the whole Saints free agent frenzy, and a good bit of it, majority of their free agent signings so far, all came on the first day of just the tampering day. So I mean, tampering day almost felt like it was just free agency. But let's just get into some of the players that they re-signed. I guess that was on March 9th, and then they even signed a couple of their own guys and some former guys on the 10th, and even yesterday, I do believe, on the 12th. But so with free agency, it started, when was that? Like 2 p.m. or was that, I can't even remember what time that was at. That was like at noon or 11. I think that may have been 11. Yeah, it was it was noon Eastern time, but 11 Central time is when the tampering period started. And like the first 30 minutes to like an hour or so, the Saints hadn't signed like anybody. And then, of course, the first person they sign is Ryan Wright, the punter from the Vikings, and I'm just seeing all these other like uh, big time running backs like Kenneth Walker signing and Tyler Algier signing on other teams, and just other players signing with other teams, and I'm just like, man, it must be nice getting nice new skills position or defensive playmakers added to your team while I'm over here with Ryan Wright. But honestly, can't after everything kind of calmed down, and then the Saints actually signed a few guys. Looking back on this Ryan Wright signing, is I love this. I love that the Saints actually are gonna, at least from what his statistics last year were, he was like a top 10 punter and had like, I think, the longest punt last year of like 77 yards. He's a fat punter. He's a fat punter. So he puts his weight into each one, and he knows what he's coming back to for Louisiana and New Orleans, because he played at Tulane. So as long as he can keep his weight respectable, I think I'm excited that the Saints may actually have a top 10 punter and actually have a good punter for the first time since, I guess, Thomas Morstead was here. So Ryan Wright, the first player the Saints added on the first day of tampering, and he signed a 4-year, $14 million contract with the New Orleans Saints. And I mean, that seems kind of pricey for a punter, but considering how horrible the Saints have been over the last couple of years at that position and on special teams, I'm perfectly fine with it. All right, so now it's next player that was added, and we're basically kind of cured all of the way I was feeling when the first player that they signed was a punter. And then I saw Kenneth Walker and Tyler Algier come off the board as running backs of players that of position of need for the Saints. And honestly, I really never thought the Saints were going to be like in first place in contention for getting Kenneth Walker. So I was really not that concerned about that signing. And honestly, I actually would have liked to have Tyler Algier from the Falcons, who I think only signed like a six or like a, yeah, it was like either just like a 6 or like a $9 million contract. So you could say that he was a discount, definitely a bargain. It felt like bargain bin shopping with the contract that he signed. So two of the top running backs came right off the board, and really the one I was interested in was Tyler Algier. Just felt like he got kind of buried under the carries and the touches that Bijan Robinson was getting. So he could have came here and been a lead back, or at least an actual 1-2 punch with Alvin Kamara, because that's kind of always what Alvin Kamara has been the majority of his career. But instead, they go and sign probably, arguably, the second best running back on the market, the free agent market, and a running back that I always thought, when he originally was coming out of Clemson, I always thought he was very similar to Alvin Kamara. Size and weight, and the way and his balance and elusiveness. But I think obviously at this point in his career, when I think he turned what, 27 in January. He obviously has more explosiveness and breakaway speed than Alvin Kamara at this point in his career. But that's all who I always kind of compared Travis Etienne to was Alvin Kamara. But yeah, so the Saints got their running back. So the hopes uh, that Jeremiah Love falls to them. I think that just the fingers completely come untwisted on that because we're not praying for that. We're not praying for that anymore because we got our should be our number one back or at least respectable in touches, equal in touches with Alvin Kamara. If he's still on the team, otherwise it's going to be Estime and those and Neal and guys like that the Saints had running the rock and carrying it at the end of the year. But yeah, so that kind of cured all with the punter being the first signing for the Saints. But heck, it got even better than that. So we talked about how Travis Etienne felt like is probably the second best, or at least projected second best running back available in free agency. And one of the things the Saints really needed coming into free agency and was probably like their weakest position and like one of the biggest needs coming into free agency was interior offensive line, specifically left guard. And the Saints were able to fill that with kind of like Travis Etienne, considered the best, but maybe considered the absolute best guard that was available in free agency, and that was David Edwards from the Buffalo Bills. And he signed a 4-year, $61 million contract with the New Orleans Saints. And the thing that was interesting with his contract and with it being such a big contract, and you see all these contracts and all the money the Saints are throwing around, and you remember in past years the Saints would be able to do that or would be able to do that with like a former star veteran player that they'd add the void years and all that to where they would be able to sign a guy to like a 6-year or 5 6 year contract. But really when you broke it down, it was really like a 1-year contract with possibly the chance to pick up their second year. But that's they didn't do any of that shenanigans or nonsense with David Edwards' contract. So that feels like, just like we were saying, like turning the page, just getting a different book, a turn in the tide. That's what that feels like here. So it's exciting. It's exciting. It's exciting to see where this goes. And the thing that will get me the most excited about it is if it leads to wins, W's, and that's what it feels like. And one of the nicest things and things that got me excited that I can't remember, like I don't know if it's age, generational, or what, that just like these kids that are just what, like first year, second, third, fourth year type of players that they were basically just born in social media. But the thing that I liked was with every player that the Saints re-signed in free agency and players that weren't like already on the team, even some that were like at Dylan Radunz, you had your star quarterback, franchise quarterback, should be your leader of the team, tweeting out to them and saying, "Hey, buddy, glad to have you back. Love having you back." Things about along those lines with all those guys, and that just builds a team, that builds a culture. So I love seeing that. I love seeing the Saints signing these high quality and high valued prospects and free agents, but I also like seeing how the quarterback and Tyler Shuck responded and reacted to that, and then hearing some of the interviews after the first, I guess, the official signing when some of these guys actually came in uh, to New Orleans to sign their contracts. You heard them talking about like one of the reasons that they decided to come here or made it easier for the Saints to sign free agents and have free agents wanting to come here is because Tyler Shuck. It seems as if some teams around here and players around here on notice that the Saints look like they potentially have a franchise quarterback again. But anyway, so let's get on back into a couple more of these free agent signings, and then I think that might be about all we have for you this evening. But so that was David Edwards, and then they signed on the same day, March 9th, they signed Noah Fant tight end, signed a 2-year contract, and the Saints tried to get him last offseason. I can't remember if that. I think that was actually during the offseason. It wasn't at the trade deadline, or maybe it was at the trade deadline. Yeah, I think he may have been cut by the Seahawks like in the middle of the season. So it wasn't necessarily a trade. Noah Fant cleared waivers and was a free agent during the season and decided to go to the Bengals instead. But not nice to add Noah Fant there. I do believe the Saints lost some tight end depth in Foster Monroe. So adding Noah Fant, who I think maybe a little bit more healthy than than Foster Monroe has been the last 2 years or so, and be nice to see if the Saints and Tyler Shuck can reopen and bloom and rebirth maybe Noah Fant's receiving game, because seems kind of like on some of these teams the last couple of years he's been used more as a blocker and hasn't been putting up like 50 catches, 500 plus yards, 5 touchdown type of seasons. Not even similar numbers to even Juwan Johnson. But glad to have it. Needed to add some tight end depth, and glad to have a guy back that we already were a little bit familiar with in regards to having had free agent talks with him before. And then we have Eric McCoy, center. Looks like he's still going to be on the team. He converted 8.7 million of his base salary plus a $500,000 roster bonus, and added a one year void year. So we were just talking about how we were trying to kind of move away from those, and then here I am talking with Eric McCoy with his void year, but it doing it that way cleared 7.36 million in cap for the Saints. And then the Saints went on to sign Caden Ellis, a former Saints, former Saints legend, and Caden Ellis, who had like his best season right before he hit free agency and was able to get the bag with the Falcons. Hated seeing him getting his money with the Falcons, but still glad to see him get his money. But I wouldn't say that he ever had as good of a season as he did with the Saints in his last season that he did with the Falcons, just in regards to being a pass rusher. So, and that's what I'm kind of interested in. I had him listed, and with the type of the tackle numbers that he's been putting up in the seasons that he was with the Falcons. What was it, the past 3 or 4 seasons? He's had at least 100 total tackles with them. So he wasn't really being used specifically as an outside like edge rusher with them. He was being used as an inside linebacker. So be interested to see if the Saints try to move him back as an outside linebacker across from but would be a bookend and Chase Young, or if they're going to try to they need to decide who is going to pick up the slack that Demario Davis is leaving behind. Is it going to be Caden Ellis, Pete Warner, or Danny Stutzman? Is it going to be one of those guys, or are we going to get to see more pass rush from Caden Ellis, who said he's a pass rusher at heart, but he didn't do quite as much as that in Atlanta as he did his last season with the Saints. And then the last signing, most recent signing that the Saints have had was March 12th, 2026, obviously. So just this past Thursday, they re-signed Dylan Raduns, that just adds great depth to the Saints. He did good and fill in jobs last year with the Saints where he was able to play pretty much any position on the line. He's a player where probably don't want him being the starter, but love to have him on the team just in case he needs to spot start here or there, because he started a bunch when he was with the Titans, and he started quite a bit with the Saints after the Saints traded away Trevor Penning to the Los Angeles Chargers. But anyway, so that's pretty much what the Saints have done so far in free agency. It kind of slows down a little bit here now after the whole crazy free agent frenzy at the beginning when it started, and you got all the big contracts, and some of these contracts are highest paid for a position's ever been paid. But now it maybe slows down. Maybe you get some bargain bin additions here, or players that you're kind of maybe even surprised they're still available on free agency. So that'll be something that'll be kind of fun to watch. I guess pretty much leading all the way up to the draft, and that could decide how the draft goes, how the picks in the draft go. Which I think adding a guy like Caden Ellis and Travis Etienne and David Edwards, no fan, all those guys makes it to where you're not hamstring, you're not handcuffed to who you have to draft there at number 8, or if you even have to stay at number 8. Like I feel more comfortable now with the Saints trading down or trading out of that 8th spot, because really my first thing was kind of my hopes. I think that maybe Jeremiah Love would be there, but now I'm not that with Travis Etienne. I'm not that concerned anymore, and really because Demario Davis left and saw that ridiculous combine numbers put out by Sonny Styles. That's really unless one of those top edge rushers or maybe Tate the receiver falls. That's about the only other player I could see that I'd really want at 8 would be Sonny Styles. Would be great to add as your hopefully be your green dot middle linebacker. But anyways, I think that's about all I have for you. And great to be back. And that Saints news should keep on rolling in now that the off season has officially started with free agency. The draft is on the way, and before you know it, hey, in August we'll be in preseason games. But anyways, I think that's all I have for you this evening. So who dat? And can I get a check, please?